Hello, everyone, and welcome to our today's webinar. I'm really glad you're joining us today. My name is Manuela Ollhäuser. I'm Marketing Director at IC Consult. And in today's session, we'll explore what it really means when AI starts acting on its own and why setting the right guardrails is essential for building AI agents that are both secure and responsible. But before I hand things over, just a few quick notes for today. First, you're all muted during the session, so no need to worry about your microphone settings. Second, we are recording today's webinar. You'll receive an email within the next few days with a link to the recording. And third, if you have a question during the session, please drop it into the chat. We'll collect all questions and address them at the end of the webinar in our Q&A. Now, let me introduce the two experts we have with us today and who will guide you through today's content. First, Stephen Hayhoe, Technical Consultant at Ping Identity, and Andre Priebe, CTO at IC Consult. Welcome to you both. Great to have you here. And now I hand over to you, Andre. Yeah, the stage is yours, so please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Manuela. Stephen, great to have you here today in that very, very exciting topic. But before we jump into it, in case you don't know IC Consult, let me introduce the company briefly to you. IC Consult is a system integrator, consulting company, a managed service provider that is completely focused on the topic of digital identities, identity security, and of course, on making AI agents secure, because this is the #1 topic today for, I think, not just us here in that virtual room together, but for the whole IT industry and even more people than that. So IC Consult is in the market for more than 25 years with more than 850 employees around the world. We are vendor independent, but working together with the best identity companies in the world, like Ping Identity, of course. And we help our customers on their journey from technology advisory through implementation, realization of a solution, but also after that, supporting them on the long run. And with that, I would like to jump into the topic of AI. When it comes to AI, I see today 3 aspects that affect us most. #1 is AI leveraged by attackers. I guess most of you heard about Project Glasswing, Anthropic Mythos. By the way, today, a kind of restricted version of Mythos has been made available to all Claude users. But the point here is the AI that is available today gives attackers a very powerful tool to their hand when it comes to different kind of attacks, identifying weaknesses and so on and so forth. The second aspect is, how can we use AI to make identity security more efficient and more effective? So in other words, being able to detect threats in a better way, making configurations faster, more reliable. So really reducing effort when it comes to maintaining and running an identity access management system. And this is quite important because when it comes to the configurations that are required, the capabilities that have to brought in place, that's something that is growing very, very fast. So the complexity of these systems are reaching a dimension we never thought about before. And the reason for that is #3, because we as identity professionals have to make the use of AI agents in organizations secure. This is our responsibility. This is nothing what a network layer can solve or a device layer can solve. This is a task for the identity layer. And that's something where we will talk about today and also see how that then looks like in real life. But first, let's understand the size of the sheer size of that challenge. Right now, we are experiencing the Cambrian explosion of AI. The pace in which agents are built and brought into production organizations, this is amazing. This is happening on a absolutely different level than what we have seen with applications, with apps, with APIs, with scripts. Now this is happening on a complete different level. It's so fast, and that's something where we have to build the capabilities to tackle that. When we are talking about AI agents, I would like to bring up one slide here explaining a little bit the levels of autonomy we see there. Because the starting point for most of us are the assistive agents. And that's, I would say, even today, the majority of AI that is running in organizations. What does it mean, assistive agents? Well, this is an agent that is interacting with an end user, receiving questions from the end user, maybe commands, and is then performing on behalf of that end user for most of the activities. What does it mean from an identity access management perspective? Well, when it comes to retrieval augmentation, so what is the agent allowed to see? Very often it is exactly what the end user is allowed to see. As end user is foreseeing, it's more kind of different tool to work with content. It's not the browser, it's the agent. But there is exciting things are happening now for the autonomous agents. So agents that are running independently, asynchronous, from any user interactions, listening to specific events, or, well, maybe a few of you have played around with OpenClaw, running on the system and performing tasks based on commands or own ideas they have. So the level of independence, the level of autonomously being autonomous is significantly higher there. But this is not the end of the journey. That's just the next step. Then we are looking forward to deal with agentic users. So more or less digital employees that have, well, a lot of flexibility because they are using the tools end users are using and much more without having someone who is overseeing their activities all the time, but also not limited to a particular use case, like this is very often the case for the autonomous agents. And that's something for sure we have to deal with that in the near future. So we have to prepare for that now. What I would like to share is a Gartner analysis from last year. First of all, showing the percentage of agentic AI in enterprise apps, or enterprise apps that will ship task-specific AI agents, or a little bit say the same topic, yeah. But the message is next year, year after that, we will have a significant part of enterprise applications that are shipping AI agents or are primarily AI applications, agentic applications. And that percentage is tremendous, having in mind that there is a lot of legacy out there still, right? So systems that are not touched anymore. So this is something that shows the dynamic we are dealing here with. And when it comes to autonomous work decisions, that's also an exciting aspect. Yeah? So 15% of all decisions taken by an enterprise will be taken by AI. That's a massive statement. I'm not sure how easy it is to calculate that, but still showing the direction here very well. And of course, all of you who work more with AI tools like Claude, as we see here on the screenshot. I guess some of you have, yes, skipped all permission requests, press the button in order to make the AI acting faster. And this is what end users are typically doing after a couple of questions. So in other words, just letting the AI tool itself deal with the tremendous risks that are coming with it, that's not a good idea at all. And so, but let's spend one more second on the topic of scalability, to talk about the scale we are talking about, not just about the applications, but also the number of identities we have to deal with, comparing the agent identities to human beings. So there are a couple of different numbers out there. But one number that is absolutely realistic is if we take also all the DevOps CI/CD pipeline credentials into that non-human identity bucket, then we are talking not about 10-to-1 machine identity to human identities or 45, but 144, and for sure this is not the end of the journey. In other words, AI agents, agent identities, non-human identities, this will be the standard case, and the human identity the corner case. But now I would like to add a little bit color to the question of, hey, what exactly are the risks that we are talking about when it comes to agents and agentic AI? And what helps a lot is making the comparison to the risks we are dealing with today when it comes to non-human identities, to service accounts, for instance. So let's have a look to risks associated with a service account in the traditional non-AI world. The use case we see here is very simple. We have an end user that is sending mail to a ticketing system. Someone's working on it, and there's one script running, the SLA monitoring script. The job is very simple. Look into the details of the tickets and figuring out if there was a violation of the service level agreements. Well, and then write the outcome of your analysis into a database. So as simple as that. We all know in the real life, very often that service account or the database user is overprivileged. What does it mean? Is it a problem? Yes, of course it's a problem, because this account can be breached, right? Somebody can take it over, and the likelihood that this happens it's possible. Right? It's possible, and the impact, well, based on the overprivilege of the user, might be a major impact. Right? But we can do things to deal with it. Yeah, we can rotate the secrets, for instance, or we can apply least privilege, and then the impact, the blast radius, is reduced tremendously, right? So even if the account is taken over, maybe the attacker can insert additional data into the database, and that's it. So we can live with it. Now let's make the comparison how today such a functionality will be implemented, because you can expect that the likelihood that someone is writing a script is smaller than saying, hey, I have Claude running, and say here a new routine, talk with the ticketing system, get the data out of it, and make the analysis and talk to the data storage system to store it. What does that mean now? We are talking here about a new protocol, MCP. It is new, but it is heavily used already. Never in IT, a new standard, a new protocol has been adapted so fast as MCP. And the reason for that is, this is a language of the AI systems, how AI systems talk to each other. And it's a REST API, but it has a specific flavor that adds risk to it. And that's something where we will zoom in right now. So the end user is again writing the mail to the system, all the same. In that mail, it's an area that is black, black background and a black font with text on that black background, not visible to a human user, but visible to the AI that is working on the ticket. And MCP is now the way how the client, the tool where the routine is running, is requesting data from the ticketing system, also requesting the malicious injection. And then it's updating the database, but not via a SQL statement, but again via MCP. So MCP is having resources, it has tools are the capabilities, what the system, the database system is providing towards the client. And so something says, hey, is there some tool to update reports, or add new reports to it? But based on that prompt, the tool has been convinced to do something else. What can that be? I don't know. The point here is, as long as the database is just providing a tool that allows you to update the database, what should go wrong? Of course, data can be manipulated. But the thing about MCP is the provider of the MCP's interface can add new tools to the interface all the time. It's like adding a new endpoint to an API, for instance. But the difference is, without giving any new commands to the AI tool, the tool might use the new provided MCP tool right away, because the large language model running in the tool comes to the decision that this tool might make sense for the prompt, the command provided, also for the injected prompt. So let's look into that from a risk perspective. Here's the thing. First of all, the attack surface gets significantly larger, and then the impact gets larger because it's unpredictable. We don't know what capabilities are added to MCP servers over time, and this really makes a massive difference. That is the reason why the blast radius and the likelihood of the things going wrong in that AI world is increasing tremendously. What we see here are a number of MCP incidents over the last couple of months, and mapped to the over top 10 for agentic applications. So the most misused attack vectors against AI applications. I don't want to go through all the details. You will get the presentation afterwards and can have a look into all these vulnerabilities by yourself. I would like to bring up another element here that is important to help us to solve that challenge. The one thing that is a very interesting, very recent study published by Dr. Angelika Steinacker, it is helping us to get a very clear perspective on the topics that we want to solve for authorization when it comes to agents. So the one question is, of course, access to data that we provide to agents. Because access to data is always coming with a reason to access that data. This is nothing which is special for agents at all. Agents have a purpose. Someone builds an agent and defines what is the purpose of that agent. Why do I build that agent? What should that agent do? And then, while the agent is running and doing something, has a specific intent. And this intent has to be something which is a subset of that purpose, which is the subset of what is allowed to do with the data. In other words, if you look to the agent from a more conceptual perspective, you have a kind of identity passport for the agent. Who is that agent? On whose behalf is that agent acting? What is the scope of the agent? What's the purpose of that agent? And this is all defined at build time, let's say. Yeah. It might change over time, but it's nothing what is highly dynamic. We have the governance aspect of data access policies, authorization concepts, access control concepts. And then we have the, again, an administration topic, and then we have the runtime topic. Yeah. So at runtime, when it comes to deciding whether we allow or deny a request, then it's about understanding what is the intent. Is it something what is within the boundaries defined for the purpose, and on the other side of the policies. Well, one area that will help us in the future a lot are all the additions right now under development for OAuth, for the OAuth framework. They cover different areas of agent identities, of how to delegate on behalf of human in the loop, and so on and so forth. But these things are draft. George Fletcher did the analysis of pulling all that ongoing drafts together to provide that kind of overview that I'm sharing here with you. This is valuable to understand what's going on and how many different working groups are actively engaged in that topic. And with that, I would like to end my part here by providing the overview of capabilities that, from my point of view, an identity access management system has to provide in order to allow organizations to leverage AI in a secure way. You need capabilities to discover an agent and having a controlled life cycle for that in place. Yeah? So identity security, posture management, identity visibility, and intelligence platforms that help you to find the agents out there, then putting them into an inventory, putting them under management, assigning an owner to it. Yeah? The next pillar is about authentication, authorization. Authentication, okay, good, but authorization is that's a massive challenge. Yeah? How do I enforce a human in the loop? How do I decide whether a specific request on maybe MCP or A2A or UCP or other upcoming protocols is allowed or denied? How do I apply least privilege for agents? Yeah? Some of our customers are running now zero trust for AI agent programs because this is an approach that helps us to limit the risk exposure. And the last pillar is then the AI security from protocol perspective. MCP is something where we have to focus on right now, and without having a capability like a gateway, like a proxy, where you can enforce authorization at runtime in place, you won't be able to manage these upcoming risks. Also having a place where you can have audits and understanding of all the interfaces you are exposing into the AI world, like an MCP registry. So a lot of new topics, but now, Stephen, I would like to hand over to you to show us how Ping Identity is tackling all these challenges.
Okay, thanks, Andre. I'll just swap the share so that okay. So hopefully you can see that. Okay. So just a little bit of background on Ping itself. Like Ping has been around providing enterprise-grade identity and access management solutions for 25 years now. And globally, we currently have under management in excess of 8 billion user accounts. But in addition to just our platforms that provide the standard identity and access management capability of authentication, single sign-on, authorization, we also provide a whole range of sort of ancillary services, if you like, that support identity, implementation. So things like orchestration tooling, threat detection, things like identity verification and digital wallets. So there's a whole range of services that we provide, so that you could sort of weave together sort of this identity fabric to provide a sort of comprehensive solution, identity and access management solution. So today I'm going to just sort of follow on from what Andre says, and sort of back up with showing you how we're sort of addressing some of the things that he has raised in his presentation. But I just wanted to start by just saying that, you know, so the two areas that are sort of interest to us as Ping as an organisation that we are working on. I just want to differentiate between identity for AI and AI for identity. Now, obviously, AI for identity is really about providing tools to exploit AI to help build and manage identity platforms. And so we're doing a whole bunch of stuff in that space, but that's not the scope of today's discussion. We're really here to focus and talk about identity for AI. How do we secure an organization's sort of identity ecosystem, agentic ecosystem, you know, with an identity control plane? So Andre in his presentation had a way of cutting sort of agent types. We sort of have also done this, but we've sort of cut it a little bit differently. So, you know, at a very high level, you know, we see three sort of core agent types that we're seeking to address. Personal agents, where people bring their own tooling to then try and interact with an organization's services that they've exposed for them to use. So this is where the agent itself sits outside the organizational trust boundary. The next one is digital assistance, which is where organizations provide an assistant to either their customers or to their workforce or their employees to perform some actions on the user's behalf. And then the third type is those autonomous agents that are going off and doing a whole range of things on their own with say minimal human involvement. This is just a very high level thing, a high level view of the different types. But you know, in reality, each of these three different agents, there are multiple sort of deployment patterns. There is not one sort of deployment pattern. And so those different patterns might be, you know, where are the resources located? Are they inside your trust boundary or outside the trust boundary? How is the agent accessing? Is it through MCP or through some other mechanism? And so there's a whole range of different patterns. Now, in general, as Andre alluded to, there is some standards that exist today that goes some way to addressing all these different patterns. But like he said, there are gaps, and these standards are evolving to address those gaps. But there are some things that do work today, and I'm going to demonstrate a digital assistant shortly to show you that you can use some tooling based on existing standards to actually protect agents today. But when we think about what we need to protect against, or what are the capabilities we need to provide that sort of agentic, the identity sort of controls around agentic AI. I mean, obviously, authentication authorization is an important piece. We need to be able to authenticate agents. We need to be able to provide delegation should that be required. We need to have a way of sort of not over privileging the agents. So, you know, authentication authorization is obviously one of the key pieces. The next one is in agent sort of resource management. You know, an agent should be treated as a first-class identity within your platform, and so as such, it needs to have some processes around how do you provision those agents. You know, so those normal sort of life cycle management style aspects of the agent, and also to provide some entitlement, how you're going to manage the entitlements around those agents. The next the next consideration is with the sort of the wide adoption of MCP as a sort of de facto standard, and it's becoming a valid standard, widely adopted. there are some things that maybe you don't want to implement in every MCP server. You want to basically try and standardize and have a standardized approach to do that. And the way to do that may be through some sort of MCP gateway, which we'll go and explore in a little while. And last but not least, we need to be able to govern agents, be able to have things like discovery. How can you discover agents that are sitting in your environment? But also those standard governance capabilities of, being able to recertify agents and recertify when in a regular basis, much like you do with identity governance for users. So there's sort of the key areas that we're seeking to address. And so this is sort of our product offering as it stands today. And right at the center of our offering, and all of our identity and access management platforms provide this capability, this agent IAM core. This is where you do have an agent as a first-class citizen within your environment, and provide the tools for onboarding agents and setting entitlements to agents, etc. So that's a core offering that we offer today. We also do if you look down the bottom here, we have an agent gateway. So this is where we can have the agent, the MCP gateway or the agent gateway can do all the management of the identity sort of interactions that needs to do with the IDP. So you don't have to go and implement that in every MCP server. It's a way of sort of delegating it back to the gateway, and it allows you to scale then in your environment. So the gateway is responsible for doing all that interaction with the IDP to do token exchange, etc. Agent governance is a brand new capability that was only released 2 weeks ago, and this does have a discovery capability. It reaches out to all sort of the large, well-known agent platforms to be able to discover agents that exist in your environment, and then you can then build things like requests for onboarding agents. You could do certifications, etc., and with approval workflows, etc. Standard governance stuff. So that represents our sort of core agent capability that we're delivered. But we've also got some capability within these top 3 products. These products have been around for a lot longer. They predate agentic AI, but there is a role for each of these to play within an agentic landscape. The protect to do sort of threat detection, authorize to provide some centralized policy management around fine-grained authorization. So what is your agent able to do, and you can then control what entitlements that agent is entitled to. And then ping one privilege, which is our just-in-time privilege product, can then be used as well to just assign the entitlements to the agent just in time, i.e. when it's needed, and then remove those entitlements as soon as it's no longer required. So that's sort of what our landscape looks like today. When we go out and talk to our customers, we see, I suppose, the common use cases that we're seeing a lot of, and what people are doing. So spread across SIAM and workforce. If we look at these common use cases, we've got consumer agents. This is the personal agent in the consumer space, where people bring their own agent along to access a company's resources. Now, honestly, this is early days for this capability. It's okay for doing read style interactions, maybe with an organization's services. But some of the mechanisms, I think, are still being developed to make that a really secure, sort of a secure pattern. It's where we see a lot, and the bulk of the work is around these customer service agents. This is where an organization builds an agent and provides that to their customers to then interact with their services. And I'll show you with my demo that I'm going to show you, which is an example of this. Employee assistant agents are the same thing. The audience is just different. It's exposed for the employees to then do something within the organization. So yeah, they're certainly the ones that we see the most of. And the good news is that those ones actually, the identity, I suppose, mechanisms that exist today do a pretty good job at addressing some of these use cases quite well. For some patterns, not all patterns. When it comes to third-party agents, this is where maybe your vendor has provided you an agent to do something, and you want to run that agent within your organization. Generally, there's some organizations are looking for governance around that capability. And then, of course, one of the other big areas that we see a lot of people is around the coding, as being one of the sort of areas where there's a high uptake of agentic use. And so, when it comes to the ping capabilities, our privileged product is something that can really help control the entitlements that, say, a coding agent can do for doing things like checking in code, writing tickets, etc. So what I want to do now is I want to just show you a demo. So this is just one pattern. This is not every pattern. I don't have time to go through the sort of full range of patterns, but this is a digital assistant pattern where we have, say, a banking service. We'll have two services, a core banking service and a lending service within an organization. Both of those are fronted by an MCP server, which then advertise out and orchestrate the interaction with the back-end services. What we have also is the MCP gateway, which is doing all the interaction or the user interaction with the IDP, saving us having to implement that multiple times. We also have obviously an agent and an UI for the user to interact with that agent. So what my demo is going to show now is how some of these mechanisms are there today and can be used to provide a high level of protection here. So if we have an agent, when the agent fires up, it actually goes and registers itself against the IDP, in this case Ping1 Advanced Identity Cloud, using a DCR endpoint. Now, part of that agent core product capability that I talked about is we've enhanced we've provided a separate endpoint for agentic-based DCR, or dynamic client registration. The traditional DCR only goes and creates a OAuth client. But what our agentic DCR endpoint does is it actually goes and creates a identity for the agent on the IDP. It also does create the OAuth client, but then it so basically provides that registry, which Andre mentioned in his presentation, and so that it becomes a first-class citizen within the within the identity stack. So once the agent has registered, they are able to obtain an access token, the agent token. So when the user wants to go and then perform something against the banking server, if user authorization is required, the MCP gateway will know that it is required, user auth is required, and it will then trigger a CEBA backchannel flow to do a push notification to the user to actually approve that transaction. And then once they've approved that, the MCP gateway then receives the subject token or the user token. Now, we don't want to use that user token to access the banking server. We want to use the principle of delegation. We want to delegate to the agent the right to go and perform some transaction on the back end. And so to do that, we then perform token exchange. So we pass the agent token and the user token back to the IDP, and it gets exchanged for a restricted scope token for it to perform an action on the back end. And so here we can see we're trying to sort of support those principles. We talk about human in the loop. We talk about delegation rather than impersonation. And And so this is what I'm going to now sort of step into my demo and show you this. So if I go here, I can show you I've got this. This is a live demo. I'm not going to be using a video, but you can see here I have all the different components running in my Docker desktop. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go into the platform and have a look at the actual banking app itself. So this is just the standard way of accessing the banking app using, auth code flow. Got a bit of consent there. And here is a banking app. So I've just logged in the usual way. I can go and do transactions on here the usual way that you would do it. I could go and put in $200. I could say sale of bike deposit. Okay, and so that's now deposited that into the thing. So that's just a banking app itself. So if we want to go and do use the digital assistant, we could go down here and click this one down here to use the digital assistant. But let's assume that the user's not actually logged into the front end. They're out somewhere else on their phone or whatever. They don't have to be logged in. So this is the digital assistant. If I just go hi, it says, okay, I'm your banking assistant. I'm here to help. I just need to know who you are. So I'll put in my details. There. Now in this case, when we go through that flow here, the agent doesn't, for that interaction, the agent doesn't actually need to use a token. An agent token is okay, just to check to see if the user is valid. And so he's going to say, how can I help you today? The first thing I'm going to do is say, how can you help me? And this is just the LLM knows what it can do. It goes and checks. It says, well, these are all the things that you can do on this thing. So let's go and do show my account balances. And while I do that, I just want to show you that I have this will then sort of trigger a push notification to my phone for me to approve this. Okay, you can see there, it says, do you want to approve this banking access for account banking's read? I'll go in there and say yes. So now it's gone, it's going to get a user token, it's going to perform that token exchange, pass that exchange token to the back end to get access to my details. And so that's sort of using that read transaction. If I want to say transfer 300 from my checking account to account. So what it's going to do now is let's just, it's going to prompt me again. This time it's going to need a different level of authorization to actually change. I didn't get the pop-up, but anyway, it is there. And so now that I've approved that, that same thing happens, and the transfer goes through. And we can come back here, and we can see that we've transferred the money, the $300. But most importantly, we've been able to identify that the agent has performed that interaction, not the end user. We can differentiate who actually performed the transaction. So that's in general showing that all that working. You can see if we go in now to the actual Ping One Advanced Identity Cloud, we can see now we've got AI agents as an identity type within our platform. We can go and add agents here manually or via the API, but because we use dynamic client registration, it has actually gone off and created it automatically via that client registration endpoint. It still goes and creates. So what this does is it creates the agent identity within the platform. It also creates the OAuth client that the agent can use. when it creates the agent object itself, you can set metadata against this, and so this is very useful for when you go into a thing like governance, and you have the ability to be able to read, the metadata to make different decisions and different workflows based on sort of the metadata. So, for instance, you might have a governance process that wants you to run a campaign to recertify the agent every week if it's high risk, every month if it's medium risk, and maybe every 6 months if it's low risk. So you can sort of use that metadata to do whatever you want. So once that's created, while that's created as well, what's also important is the permissioning around that. So we can see here that under the applications, here's my core banking application and my lending application. So within that, I can then set some permissions. We can say who it's allowed to act on behalf of. So in this case, he's allowed to act on behalf of this user here. You can actually also do it at a group level, but also you can set the permissions around what scopes the agent is allowed to adopt to perform for the user. Yep. So that's sort of showing you that sort of capability within the platform itself. If we now let me just come back to here and see where we're at. Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, the end of what I had to present. So yeah, I suppose it's now time for questions.
Yes, I think so as well, and I'm sure there are already a couple of questions, but I think so. So it was very nice to see how that architectural picture here translates to configurations, the ping identity tools, and also to have it very visible how agents are a little bit in between of being an application on the one side, with all the tooling around that, but at the same time also having specific attributes and behaviors that are more like a user. So they are really, from a technical perspective, a little bit a big mix of an application and a user. So, but it's great to see them treated as first-class citizens in the digital identity world.
All right, thanks to both of you. Let's quickly jump into the questions. So if you have questions for the two of them, so just type it in the chat and we will pick them up. So let's have a look. Shouldn't we wait with applying agentic AI until the security challenges are more or less solved, but not right now?
I would say this is a little bit like, well, we have to be very well aware the train is already going fast speed, right? And I would not recommend to anybody to say, hey, I will stop the train. This will just not work. Because what we might not forget is there are not just risks associated with applying AI, there are also obvious risks associated with not applying AI in their own organization. Because if your competitor does and is moving faster, more efficient, better than you, then the company will struggle, not because of AI risks, but because they are not competitive anymore at all, right? So that's something why I would say that pressure is there, and we have to deal with it. And also my hope is that it became clear today that even if there are a couple of areas where there is no solution, not a clear understanding how the solution should look like available yet, there are a lot of things already available. Also, on the Ping Identity platform, as Stephen has shown to us. So that's something what we can do already today to support a couple of use cases very well.
All right, thank you. And another question is, how do I model intent and purpose into a technical policy?
Well, to be honest, we have seen live what Stephen presented when it comes to putting policies in place for agentic applications. And there is, I would say there's a gap in what do we want to do from a conceptual way and what do not just products, but also standards allow us to do, because it's not about having one product that solves everything. We are talking about different components that have to interact with each other. We need to have robust, reliable standards on top of that, and that's and that will take some time until we really reach that point. Stephen, one thing that comes into my mind, but I would love to get your opinion on that as well, is topics like OAuth dynamic scopes. Gives a high degree of flexibility, even if it is not used by most organizations yet. And I guess that can help us a little bit when it comes to intent and to purpose for AI agents. So what's your take?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would agree with you that there is a bit of a gap at the moment. It is something that everyone recognizes is a control that we need to have in place, but the standard's not quite there yet, and the products haven't caught up yet. I mean, the fact is that this space is moving at such a fast pace. I mean, when you look at MCP and how fast that's evolving. I mean, last year I think there was four different releases of the MCP standard, the authorization specification. So it was changing quarterly, which was crazy. It hasn't changed since November, so I think there's one due again maybe in a month or so. So I think the cadence maybe is getting a little bit better and a bit more manageable. But it's honestly, it is changing at a phenomenal rate. I think, yeah, once we see these standards catch up to what the controls are needed. But that's not to say that there aren't things we can do today to sort of start getting a start on these things. They may not be 100% perfect, but they might be able to help sort of form a foundation of the controls that you will need.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So what we should not forget is 18 months ago, there was no MCP. Yeah? And now we are talking about protocol that is implemented by all large organizations out there somehow. Yeah? So within less than 2 years, compare that to things like OpenID Connect, SAML, or SCIM, yeah, or the identity standards here. 2 years are nothing. Yeah? And now in 2 years, the protocol is available everywhere. So that's well, playing on a different league, clearly.
Manuel, I think you're on mute.
You're muted.
Thank you. All right. So at the moment, I do not see any further questions. So thanks to both of you. Oh, now another one is coming in. Let's pick that up. Does this approach only work for Ping? If no, can it be used in collaboration with other IAM systems such as SailPoint or OneIdentity?
I think this might refer to the gateway capabilities. Stephen, do you want to take that one, or should I share my perspective?
Well, it's going to be hard for me to comment on what our competitors do. Everyone, all the IAM companies are all attempting to implement some aspect of agentic AI. I think we're all approaching it slightly differently. No, everything that I showed you now, I showed you before, was pretty much probably, it was all based on standards. So if these other tools provide the standards, then you could implement them on these other tools. I didn't present anything that wasn't on standard, apart from the I think the dynamic client registration that I was highlighting was our specific agent dynamic client registration. So it's really about whether they support the standards that yeah.
All right. Good. I think we can close the session now. And thanks again. And thanks to everybody that joined. It was a very interesting session, and I hope to see everybody soon in further webinars. I wish you all a good rest of the day, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.